Weird, expensive, unique, chunky, alien. All these words describe this sneaker that is still turning heads after 28 years. And you know what? I think it's one of the top 10 best sneakers ever designed. And today, we're going to be going down the history of the Foamposite One from Nike. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It's Mike from the Sneaker History Podcast, and we're back with another video. Guys, thank you so much for joining. I really do appreciate you. And today, well, we're going to talk about some history. We're talking about the Nike Foamposite One. And I want to do this in honor of the Galaxy Foam dropping, well, as I'm recording this video. And I know some people are like, why are foams so cool? Why do people care about this? Well, I know foams are definitely a niche shoe, however you want to say it. So let's talk about it, because I know a lot of people weren't around in 1997 with the initial release, and maybe some people weren't even around collecting sneakers yet in 2012 with all the craziness of the Foamposite Galaxy release. So, hey, here's your crash course so that way you understand what's going on with the foams, and hey, maybe by the end of the video you may want to try one yourself. But let's get right into it. Originally released in 1997, this Eric Avar design sneaker was actually meant for one Scottie Pippen. Now, Scottie wasn't really feeling the sneaker and, well, passed on it. I know you guys probably heard this story, at least those familiar with foams. But the crazy thing was, as they moved on to that shoe, designed something else for Scottie, in a chance meeting with Penny Hardaway, well, he saw the sneaker and said, you know what? I like it. Let me have it. I'm sure he probably said something else, but we're gonna go ahead and just paraphrase, right? Now, this sneaker never was a Penny signature, but it was a Penny endorsed sneaker, if that makes sense to you guys. So that's why with the Foam One, you still get the Penny logos embroidered in the heel tab, and of course you get the jeweled logo in the tongue. Now, of course, you always saw Penny high flying in this sneaker in the NBA, but before Penny even wore the sneaker, before it saw the NBA hardwood, it was actually worn by, well, Arizona Wildcat at the time, Mike Bibby. You know, just the unknown player, Mike Bibby. I'm being funny. But he wore the sneaker first, and in the Royal Colorway during the March Madness tournament back in 1997. And of course, again, the rest is history. Could you just imagine in an alternate timeline somewhere out there in the multiverse, there's actually a Foamposite Scottie signature sneaker, just this right here, but in red, white, and black colorways, which, man, that would have been kind of cool with all the Mike's colors of his Jordans. You got Penny's Foamposites. That might have been the best 1-2 duo in sneaker signature athletes on one team. That's would have been pretty cool, but I'm okay with what we got. Now, the Foamposite One itself dropped with a hefty price tag of $180. 180 bucks. 1997, that's a lot of money. I mean, heck, in 2025, that's a lot of money. But it's so crazy to think that this super technologically advanced sneaker in 1997, 180 bucks. I'm saying that like 100 times because I want you guys to realize something, but I don't have one handy. You guys know we're paying $180 for Jordan 1s now with no technology. Ain't that crazy how things change? But the reason the shoe was so expensive, and I got to shout out to the homie Nick on this one, because back when he was at Complex, he and Russ Banks actually wrote an article called 20 Things you didn't know about the Foamposite, and I'm using some of their knowledge to bring to you guys, because the older article, I think he said back in 2013 they wrote it. So shout out to Nick, I appreciate you for pointing me out to your article, because now I have more facts for people. But anywho, the reason the shoe was so expensive is because the mold. The mold of the sneaker, which they used, of course, to build it, $750,000. That's how much the mold costs. So I guess it makes sense for the sneaker to be 180 bucks at the time. So what's the excuse now for sneakers being that much? I'm just asking. But there's also the reason they're expensive now, because they're going to be coming in between $240 and $250 depending on the Foamposite or the design, color, whatever it may be. They have the premiums they put on there, but they destroyed those molds, because another fun fact, the Foamposite didn't sell like hotcakes. It didn't sell like the Jordan. It was something that was really a niche group of individuals, little kind of an actual cult classic for people, because it wasn't the shoe that everybody was wearing. Again, it was really pricey, very weird at the time. It wasn't something a lot of people got behind, but real basketball fans, really sneakerheads like who like the deep cut sneakers at the time, those were things that they loved because they were different. So their love of that shoe kept the sneaker alive enough to where Nike decided to, of course, rebuild molds, bring them back. Now, another cool thing about this sneaker is that, well, this polyurethane shell is actually, it was actually inspired by a Beetle. So if you look at a Beetle, they have that kind of that hard shell, they have kind of that pearlescent look to them. That's what this was inspired by. Super cool. I love the fact that they used nature for that, and that's where I think the lines as well, you have to really look at a Beetle and you can see kind of that design in the shell, and that's where we get this Foamposite. Now, the foam itself is not just some piece of foam they slap around a shoe, but actually starts as a liquid form. And they pour it into the mold, which has to be heated to around 130 to 145? I got notes here, hold on. 130 to 175 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's how they poured into the mold, and that's how they put it together. Building this sneaker is absolutely insane, and the more I talk about it, the more you're gonna understand the cost, but dang, $230, $240 now is super expensive, and again, back then in 97, $180 was absolutely unheard of. So, to my older sneaker collectors out there, do you guys remember Daewoo? Like, you know, the car brand? Yeah, that Daewoo. Well, did you know that Daewoo actually helped to bring the Foamposite to life? I had no idea. That's something new to me. Again, shout out to Nick and Russ for that list, because I never would have guessed that of all people, Daewoo. I mean, I forget they even existed half the time. They actually helped create one of the most iconic shoes ever. So shout out to Daewoo. Appreciate you guys. Without you, there'd be no Foamposite. So thank you. Now, that was all those facts I want to spurt off to you guys because I think they were cool. It was something that was different. Something that we don't really get to go into these deep dives because we just see, oh, shoe, colorway, dope, let's buy it. But I like digging into it because I want to know the history. Sneaker history. We're here, follow me, guys. I like to know, more about it. I think helping you guys know more about it gives you this insight before you even buy something. So it is what it is, right? So let's move on past 97 through the original release. And like I mentioned, these weren't a hot seller, just very pricey and very weird for the time, right? So they had different iterations. You had the Foamposite Pro with the Nike swoosh. You had the Flightposite, which was going to be the sleeker design. It had the zip-up shroud. You had the Clogposite, which was the take-down, really the casual after ball plan. You could slip these on and, well, a clog. Now, eventually, they just kind of phased out, to say the least. They just kind of disappeared. But you had, again, those niche collectors who really kept the legacy of the foam alive. So in the early 2010s, they started making their way back out. They're here again, and that's when I got my first experience with Foamposites in those early 2010s, because when I grew up, I don't think they even sold foams. I'm trying to remember, I don't remember a single person in Beaumont, Texas wearing Foamposites while I was in school. And yes, I was around in 1997. I was 8 years old, and from that time moving forward, I don't recall seeing a single foam on anyone's foot in school until I got to college. And the early 2010s is where I saw them. So I got a shout out to my good buddy, Josh, one of my best friends. He's the person I first saw foams in hand. And that literally changed my life. It was one of those shoes I always saw, like kind of a mythical thing, like, oh, those are cool. I never got my hands on them, so I couldn't understand the full gravity of the foam. But once I actually held one in hand in those early 2010s, it was over. It became one of my grails, one of my favorite shoes from afar because, I mean, to be fair, again, $200 in college, I wasn't affording a Foamposite, so it was still kind of out of reach. So I finally know where they are. I just couldn't afford them at the time because, again, the price was still too high for a college kid. But that was the time they were coming back. The early 2010s, we got a lot of different releases, more colors, brighter, and people are really starting to wear them in the mainstream. So you have, of course, your Wale's, you have your Stollies, you have, pick a person. They were wearing the Foamposites and making them look just fantastic. And again, I can't tell you who is the person to put them in the forefront. DMV, New York, you guys pick your poison there. But I will say, Nike did make a DMV foam, so maybe they picked sides. But the shoe started gaining a little bit more popularity. Still not a Jordan's popularity, but I'm not gonna lie, pretty close on his heels. It just, again, the price point was high. And then, of course, 2012 happens, which, like I said in the beginning, Galaxy Foamposite. That was the shoe, to me, to put sneaker culture in the mainstream. And when I say that, I mean, we had news outlets, blogs, everything covering this Foamposite One release during All-Star of 2012. We had someone trying to trade their 1996 Chevy Cavalier, a whole car, for a pair of sneakers. That is absolutely insane. And that, I think Nike saw it, of course. Nike pays attention. So they saw, wow, people love this. So once they moved on from the release, we kept getting more and more foams. from, of course, the solid colors, but now they started putting more prints like the Galaxy. So we have a lot of things going on with foams. You have these super rare ones like the Paranormans that came out. Of course, you have people still trying to figure out how to get Galaxies. We had other foams like the rookies, the foam rookies that came out. Lots of things happening with the Foamposite. I mean, heck, they even brought back the Tim Duncan Foamposite Max for a while, which I had a black pair, got on sale. I do not know why I sold that shoe. That's upsetting. But that's neither here or there, because if those do release again, I will be getting that pair. Trust me, I will. But again, they were rolling. Foams releasing like, seems like every weekend. But like every good thing that happens in the sneaker world, when it's too good, they start overproducing in the worst kind of colorways. So we had things like the Heat Map. We had things like the Spider-Man foams. We had things like the Fighter Jet, which I guess were kind of cool, but at the same time, not very wearable. You had things like the Safari foams. Just too much happening with Foamposites where people, they took a step back. And that's what happens typically when it comes to sneakers. If there's too many things and they're just hitting you in the face with them all the time and they're just not something that is wearable, people step back and again, foams start to slowly leave the frame. People started walking away from them. And yeah, I mean, it was time. It was oversaturated. Let's put them back for a while. Let's rethink it and come out with a better strategy. And that's what Nike started to do again. They started having these different releases that kind of sprinkled in every so often, like things like the Comme des Garçons foams, which is super cool. Very expensive because, well, Comme des Garçons, and they had to change the mold because it didn't have the typical shell. It had this weird radial shell on it, which again, very awesome, but just, very expensive, out of the reach of a normal sneaker consumer. But that kind of got people talking about foams again, but not enough to start producing a lot. And now we get to 2024 last year. We're getting these classics back. Royals, eggplants. We're gonna get some new things like the Orwoods. We're getting things like the Coppers, which I showed you guys already, which I can pull those up for your viewing pleasure again. We're getting those classics again. They're not getting too crazy. There's a couple things with graphics that they did with like Alma Manier, or was it Social Status? Same place. I can't remember which store actually had the collaboration, but nothing too crazy. Another collaboration with Comme des Garçons. Nothing too crazy. Enough to still keep you interested. And Nike saw, okay, there's some interest. Still expensive. Again, coming in at $230, $240, $250, depending on what sneaker you want. Nike saw all for this lead up. We're gonna bring the Galaxy back. And most of us didn't believe it because there's always a lot of news of, oh, leak, we're bringing this shoe back, and it turns out it never was true. Just somebody trying to get a click on social media. But as we see right at this moment, the Galaxy Foamposites have been released. It is amazing. Now at this very second as I'm recording this video, there's still a size 10 sitting there. I want the shoe. Just $230 is just so much to spend, but we'll see. But they're back. But the question is, will Nike take the slow approach this time? Give us things that we really want, be more thoughtful? Or will they just really hit the spam button and just give us every phone that we just don't care about? It seems like we're gonna get some cool things here. We got the, I call them Paranorman lights. You're gonna get the black and volts coming. We should have some other pairs coming as well. I think some of the Foamposite, like the pearls are coming back if I'm not mistaken. There's been a list of about 6 or 8 foams coming out throughout the year of 2025, which I think 8, enough. I don't think we need any more than that. Drop one maybe once a month for the rest of the year. I think people will be satisfied with that. And it will really keep people satisfied because it's not too much. Because phones right now, of course, aside from the limited ones, I'm not gonna say sitting like, oh, they're just sitting, no one wants them, but they're easier to obtain because people are into different things right now. So for us collectors who really love phones, it's a great time because, okay, cool, I can save my money, go get the phone I want. But I don't know, what do you guys think about phones? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you like a different phone model out there? But you guys let me know because I think it's a really cool shoe, and I think that it is one that will always be talked about, well, in sneaker history. So until next time, guys, see ya.